Loves a good list.
Oh, yeah.
Loves a good list. And, well, he's got the 5-card draw. Top 5 Look at Me athletes in sports history. So, player, go ahead and take it away.
Number 5.
We just want our respect.
Yeah, the Friday edition, Mr. Irrelevant. Away we go here on Mr. Relevant. I'm Alex Strofe with you from the Gerber Law Offices, One Call That's All Studio downtown Milwaukee. On this Friday, I'm still on vacation, so we're still looking back at State of the Packers 2025. If you missed this conversation, you're a Packers fan now, don't go anywhere because this is the place for you. We're going to take a look today with Jason Wilde of Wilde and Tausch, Gabe Neitzel, Jen, Gabe, and Chewy from our State of the Packers 2025 program a couple of weeks ago at Summerfest. Actually, that was just last weekend. It feels like it was forever ago. State of the defensive line. Obviously, in terms of the pass game last year, not great for the Packers, right? Rashawn Gary, Lucas Van Ness, Kenny Clark, Devontae Wyatt. They struggled to get sacks last year. Good in the run game, an upgrade from Joe Barry when he was the defensive coordinator in year one under Jeff Hafley, but a rough year. Can they turn it around in year two? The linebackers, I think this is the position group to have the most buzz and excitement about, right? Quay Walker is a guy who I'm still holding out hope for. It's seeming like he's starting to put it together. Edgerrin Cooper blasted onto the scene as a rookie. He was awesome. Isaiah McDuffie is back. And then Isaiah Simmons. Jason Wilde has an interesting nugget in State of the Linebacker on him. Kind of an under-the-radar signing for the Packers this offseason. A guy who was a top 10 pick, can be a versatile piece, can play all over the field. Jason on him is going to be much better than I am, but he's a guy that intrigues me. And then State of the defensive backfield. You feel great about the safeties. Corner might be another story, although one of us on the panel feels very good about where this cornerback room is at. That is all ahead. It is State of the Defense time right here on Mr. Irrelevant. It's time now to take a look at the state of the defense, and we will start with the state of the defensive line coming off of a rather rough season in year one under defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley. They make a change at defensive line coach this offseason to Marcus Covington, the new defensive line coach for the Green Bay Packers. But other than that, we're running it back. No additions in the draft, at least meaningful additions in the draft until day 3. No free agent signings, no trade for Trey Hendrickson or TJ Watt. It's Rashawn Gary, it's Kenny Clark, it's Devontae Wyatt, who they picked up the 5th-year option on this offseason, and it's Lucas Van Ness. The state of the defensive line is a scary one, Gabriel.
Yeah, it's bad. It's not good. It's not good because you're paying your best pass rusher probably a little too much money because he just couldn't live up to the potential that he showed, and it's scary to think that the best he was coming so close off that ACL because he vaulted up the year coming off the ACL right on Thanksgiving. He had 9 sacks. 9 sacks. Mm-hmm. Then nothing the rest of the year that year. Last year he only ends up getting 8 sacks. Yes, he gets his first Pro Bowl nomination and nod, but he's not good enough. Kenny Clark, now we know there were some injury issues with him. He wasn't good enough. And Lucas Van Ness, he's been disappointing through 2 years. And I know that when they drafted him, much like Rashawn Gary, it was, okay, this guy has a lot of the physical tools that you need to be a really good pass rusher. He just didn't have the actual ability, and they were hoping they could coach that into him. And yes, I know he was dealing with a thumb injury, but there's no excuse to me for being a top 15 pick in this league and getting blocked on multiple occasions one-on-one by a tight end.
Yep.
And that happened a couple of times last year. In fact, he had as many sacks as Keyshawn Nixon had. They both had 3 last season, so I don't have a lot of hope for that group. I think they did a pretty good job against the run, which is something that we always harped on when Joe Barry was the defensive coordinator. I think that
without a doubt,
schematically switching to the 4-3 certainly helped, I think, in that area. But at the end of the day, the teams that are the best can get pressure with 4. And this group cannot do that.
Yeah, you saw what the Eagles were able to do against the Packers offense. There was an opportunity in that game with as rusty, which was part of the equation, that their quarterback was. The defense held the Eagles to 16 points for 3+ quarters of the game. But the Packers could not protect Love. They obviously had the injury to Elton Jenkins. But it is a game changer when you can get pressure with 4. It gives you so much more flexibility in the back end. Now, to Jeff Hafley's credit, and this is one of the storylines of the season, he figured out a way to be a really good defense in spite of not getting that. And the worst part of their sack numbers is that they're so misleading because they got so many of them in just a handful of games that they actually make it look like they had a decent year. They finished tied for 8th in actual number of sacks, but I think 9 were against Tennessee. Like, they weren't good enough. And look, Rashawn Gary, whether it's fair or not, Rashawn Gary and Lucas Van Ness, when you're picked 12th overall and 13th overall, when you get the $96 million contract that Rashawn Gary received then, if the expectations are higher for you. There's no two ways about it. And you can say, well, you can't just measure their impact by sacks. Nobody says that about Trey Hendrickson. Nobody says that about Myles Garrett. Nobody says that about T.J. Watt.
How come the highest paid guys are the ones that have the most sacks?
Yeah. Well, not all of
Riddle
them.
me this.
And so, look, I think Rashawn Gary talked about his Pro Bowl nomination. Again, I'm sorry, but I don't see that as a legitimate measure of where he's at in terms of being a field tilting player, which is what they need him to be.
Rashawn Gary's good. He's a good player.
Yes, he's a good player.
But and this is something that Chewy talks about, and it's one of my favorite points he always makes when he's talking about football teams. In order to have a successful season, you need your A players to play like A players.
Bingo.
He's an A player. He is being paid and is being expected to be an A player.
And realistically,
and what do we know about Goody and 30-year-old players? What do we know about Goody and third contracts? He got one of those because he was so young when he entered the league. But look, they need Devontae Wyatt to play like a first-round pick. And in fairness to Devontae Wyatt, he played like one for like the first 4 games, and he hurt his ankle
against the Vikings.
And he was just never the same player. And then he was finally starting to look like he was maybe recapturing that, and then their season ended in Philadelphia. Yep. So, he's another one of those. I talked earlier about this dozen or so guys. Him and Quay Walker, who I know we'll get to when we get to linebackers, those guys, in my little cheat code on my 20 most important Packers, I'm telling you right now, I put those two together because they both were first-round picks that are, in Quay's case, entering the final year of his contract, so he didn't get the 5th-year option. And in Devontae Wyatt's case, he wouldn't have gotten one either if it wasn't for his being far less expensive than what Quay Walker's was. So both of those guys, again, they have to do more. And I think that's almost the theme, Gabe, of this team, is that they got a lot of good players that have to be more than just how good they've been.
Yeah. And to me, Brian Gutekunst has done a good job of drafting really solid players. Like, really good, starters across the league, right? And even if you don't pay Sean Ryan, like, somebody else is going to pay Sean Ryan. Not the way that, Josh Myers got paid in a one-year deal. Someone's going to give, Ryan or...
More like John Runyon.
Walker.
Yeah, he'll get starter money.
Yeah, so that's good, but you also need to have a bunch of good players don't win Super Bowls. And this has always been my big problem, and you need more stars.
And the Packers lack stars right now.
And when you have opportunities to draft as early as they did when they got Rashawn Gary, when they got Lucas Van Ness, I'm not saying you have to hit both of them because that's tough. But you got to hit one of them. And that's now you're chasing, right? Now you're going, they have to trade for T.J. Watt. Why aren't they calling, Cincinnati for Trey Hendrickson with an X? So it's a situation where you didn't hit those.
It's a niche joke, but a good one.
If you read Murphy Takes 5 on Packers.com today, you would understand that.
But Gabe, to your point, I'm looking at this group as a whole, and I do believe that Goody, on balance, because not everyone, they don't hit every single pick. That's an impossible standard.
Yep.
Ron Wolf is in the Hall of Fame, and his first-round picks, the Ross Verbas and the John Michaelses, even Craig Newsome, they weren't great first-round picks. He was unbelievable in the 3rd round, which is not where Goody had been unbelievable. But, look, all of his misses that were high-profile picks, Jair Alexander was not a miss.
Nope.
But Eric Stokes was.
Yes.
Right? Which is why you have to sign Nate Hobbs. 2nd-round picks. Josh Myers played a lot of games for you, but clearly not well enough for you to want him on your team anymore. That's why you go out and sign Aaron Banks. So that's a miss. At running back, it's great that Aaron Jones was as productive as he was because he saved your bacon. Not on your major cheeseburger, though, because you don't have that. But A.J. Dillon was supposed to be your back of the future. You missed on him. That's why you signed Josh Jacobs. You missed on Darnell Savage. That's why you signed Xavier McKinney.
Right?
Now, what's great about Goody is that, unlike Ted, he uses free agency to fill in for his misses. But when you make picks that are on your team that you don't move on from, and they're still not home run swings like the two edge rushers, that's why the pressure is on both those guys this season.
I think that's really well said.
It's a good answer.
Yes, it was.
Good answer.
Good answer.
It's like the price. What is that?
Family Feud.
Family Feud.
Family Feud, indeed. If one guy on the defensive line reaches superstardom level this year, who is it? Rashawn Gary?
No, I think the ship sailed. Rashawn Gary is who he is. My best hope, I think, is Devontae Wyatt. I think he's the one who's flashed the most at this point. And obviously we'll get this with Quay Walker, they picked up the fifth-year option. So obviously they still have hope that what they saw last year, he can translate that into a more consistent season should he be able to stay healthy.
Kingsley Enagbare. He's my sneaky little guy that could get, because he's in a contract year too, I believe,
yes,
right?
That's correct.
A guy who gets kind of a lower-priced deal because he's having a really good start to the season. About two-thirds of the way through the year, he signs something, and he ends up being – him and Carl Brooks are the two guys
Carl Brooks
that are guys
like Carl Brooks.
Aren't top 15 picks.
You don't make the playoffs without Carl Brooks last year.
That's true.
Carl Brooks' middle finger.
You're 0-6 in the NFC North without Carl Brooks.
I don't think about that.
Yeah. State of the linebackers. Quay Walker, who you mentioned last segment, Jason, entering the final year of his rookie contract, did not get the fifth-year option picked up. So a crucial season for him. It is year 2 for Edgerrin Cooper, who I think many of us view as potentially an up-and-coming superstar for this Packers defense. Isaiah McDuffie's back for the linebackers. He will fill in as a depth piece for them, a nice depth piece for them. But it's really about those first two guys, Quay Walker and Edgerrin Cooper at linebacker. Pretty good duo between Quay Walker and Edgerrin Cooper, I'd say.
I mean, one of them's good. Quay Walker is somebody, and I know Jen has fallen in love with the tools, right? He's big, he's physical, he's fast. And I understand if you're a Packers fan that feels that same way as Jen does on Jen, Gabe, and Chewy from 7 to 9, Monday through Friday. But the production has not matched up to what, and again, he's got a lot of that potential. He flashes it at times, but also there's so many times where he just guesses wrong, running up to fill a hole, and next thing you know, the running back's, oh, there he goes.
There goes Saquon again.
Yeah, and for me, for Quay Walker, the actions are speaking louder than the words for the Green Bay Packers. Because, yes, they did not pick up the fifth-year option. But Goody was also saying, oh, man, but we would, he factors into our future plans. We want to sign him to an extension. All right? When's that extension coming? And there hasn't really been much talk of it since Goody brought that up. So much like some of these other guys that are potentially waiting for extensions, I have to believe that it's not happening. I don't know if the price was too much and Quay was asking for too much, but obviously based on their actions, the Packers aren't, as of right now, looking at Quay Walker as a future piece of this defense.
You seem frustrated with the financial department of the Green Bay Packers.
No, I'm not. No, when it comes to Quay Walker, I mean,
Gabe Ball.
I mean, again, with Goody, you just have to kind of parse through what he says. You know, oh, hey, well, if Aaron Jones, no doubt he's going to be around. Well, I guess not. So you have to parse through what he says. So, look, if they've decided that they don't want to sign Quay Walker, I'm in agreement with that. I haven't seen enough out of him for 3 years for them to pick up. Again, the fifth-year option just realistically wasn't an option because of the way that the NFL does that if you're unaware. So somebody like T.J. Watt, who is a pass rusher, but because the Pittsburgh Steelers run a 3-4, he's considered a linebacker. So those are the salaries. Some outside pass rushers that are getting buku dollars get factored into what that fifth-year option number is ultimately going to be. So you're not going to pay a middle linebacker or a off-ball linebacker the fifth-year option money. It just doesn't make sense. So I understand why they didn't do that. But also, they haven't seemed to be in a rush to sign him to any other sort of long-term extension. So I don't know if they need to see more, which, again, I would agree with when it comes to Quay Walker. I just wish Goody wouldn't say, oh, yeah, this guy, definitely factoring into our future when they haven't made a move to try to lock him up long-term.
Yeah, believe what they do.
Yes.
Don't believe what they say.
Correct.
I think is a good way to view the Goody era. And so, look, a couple things, because I was catching up on the live chat on our ESPN Milwaukee YouTube channel. First of all, I don't think anybody on this panel, Jim, is underestimating what the defense did last year. I thought the defense last year was magnificent. What I respect about what Hafley did was he managed for it to be a top 10 defense in both, I think 5th in yards, 6th in scoring, or vice versa, without a consistent front four pass rush. I think what we're saying is that group needs to be better. I think if we look at the linebackers, I think we all see through the same lens that Edgerrin Cooper has star potential. Guy was a defensive player of the week. He does go get him out of the parking lot. Because he is so hard on himself. And, again, I don't want to be in parent mode, even though I'm old enough to be most of these guys' dads. Dude, it's hard to be a really good NFL player. Celebrate the wins. It's okay to feel good about yourself. And he and I talked one-on-one for a really long time. And I am in no way saying that I was imparting knowledge, but I would say that it gave him an opportunity to talk about things that he had hinted at in group settings. But he's just so demanding of himself, and I think it's to his detriment. And what was the disappointment of last season for me, defensively, was going into the Seattle game. He was playing the best football we had seen him play. He wasn't running into the wrong gap. He wasn't running around a gap to try and tackle the guy from behind.
Yep.
Right? He wasn't thinking. He looked like he knew what he was doing in this scheme. Then he hurts his ankle. He misses time. Isn't a factor in the playoff game because he misses the rest of the regular season, comes back for the playoff game. If that glimpse that we got before the Seattle game is who he's truly capable of being, he's going to be really good this season, and Jen's going to feel really good about that, and then he's going to go play for somebody else. Mm-hmm. I think is what the reality is.
Oh, yeah.
Until Goody midway through the season says, oh, no, I meant what I said, and here's a 4-year extension for him, I don't believe that. Now, I do think there's an intriguing wild card here.
Okay.
And that is Isaiah Simmons.
Oh,
now,
yeah.
again, another thing that I'm a sucker for is a good reclamation project.
Oh.
And let's be honest, Zach Bond was a huge difference maker for the Philadelphia Eagles last season.
Sure was.
And he wasn't supposed to be.
Correct.
And Devondre Campbell, I forgot his name because he walked out on me and the team, it was a first-team All-Pro that they got in June for $2 million. Now, again, I don't know what Isaiah's role is going to be. They have 2 Isaiahs, first of all, which is a lot of Isaiahs. They need like a Jacob and a Lamentations. But that's a Christianity joke. But I really want to see what Simmons can do.
That's a Christian.
Because his explanation to us, and I have no reason not to believe him, is that with the Giants and with the Cardinals previously, they loved his versatility so much that they didn't put him in any one spot. So he's playing safety, he's playing nickel, he's playing linebacker, and this guy won the Butkus Award.
Yep.
This guy was the 8th overall pick. So there's talent there. So if they can unlock that also allows them to move on from Quay Walker if he doesn't play at the level that you're hoping.
Well, and look, I think the fact that we're being hard on, at least for me, being hard on Quay Walker and being hard on the defensive line, just again tells you how good Jeff Hafley is. Because they were able to find ways to generate pressure with just 4. It just wasn't the front 4. They would do some different zone blitzes. Obviously, you're kind of putting yourself in some advantageous situations then as well. You can't. But as good as Jeff Hafley is, as much as I love him, I don't think you can be good consistently on defense just through schematics alone.
You're right.
You need to have players that are going to make his job that much easier. I think we know Jeff Hafley's a good coach, but now he needs the players to be able to help him out so they can run more of the things that he would actually like to run instead of him becoming a mad genius and coming up with these different fire blitzes and zone blitzes.
To your point on this, the best case scenario is the Packers are looking for a new defensive coordinator next year, or have a new defensive coordinator when we do this show next year. Because Jeff
I get
Hafley,
my sweatshirt first.
Yeah. That is
Jeff Hafley becomes a head coach, and I think it's certainly possible.
Oh, yeah, but I don't think that's the best case scenario.
Well,
no, the best case scenario is he does a Ben Johnson.
That's true.
And he earns the opportunity to be a head coach.
And he passes
on it for another year. And
That
then they
is
go
the
win the
best case
Super Bowl, and then he gets a different job.
Well,
There
they
we
win the
go.
Super Bowl
But-
again, you mean? Yes, but yes.
Only one. Well, two of us. Only one of us is not a fan on the panel. Look, here's the thing. To your point, and it's again, I can't believe how good of a show you've had, and I know how good you are at this job. But like to your point, Jeff Hafley got them to be who they were last season through a lot of schematics that were not the plan going in. You hear him and LaFleur and their players on defense talk about this a ton, that they did a bunch of stuff that did not in any way match what their plan was coming in when he got the job. That, to me, is the mark of a really good football coach.
Yep.
So now we've established that. The next question becomes, are those B players that are supposed to be A players going to become A players? Because if they do, now you're not talking about 5th and 6th in total defense and scoring defense. Now you're talking about 1 or 2. And now you're talking about giving your quarterback a little more leeway to make mistakes, right? I mean, remember, Favre used to love to talk about how Leroy Butler and Santana Dotson and Reggie White would, after he throw an interception, hey, don't worry about it, bud, we'll get it back for you. And then they go out there and get a takeaway, and he'd be in business, then he'd score a touchdown. Like, they didn't have that during the Joe Barry Carroll era.
Did they have any turnovers during that era?
I believe the answer is no.
It didn't
They
feel
had,
like it.
Well, not 0, but it may have felt that.
Okay, all right.
It oftentimes did.
There's one that doesn't really come to my mind, is all I'm saying.
It's actually really good.
Quay Walker. had a pick
Jair
six against
Alexander in the
Bears.
playoff game in Dallas.
Yes.
He had a pick.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Quay Walker had a pick 6 against the Bears. Jordan Love's first game as the starter, or
There you
first
go,
real
no,
game
no.
as the starter. Yeah.
Yeah, so no.
That might be it.
What do you got against Joe Barry?
He's not
A
very
lot.
good. Not very
I have
good
a
at
lot
his job.
against Joe Barry.
Interesting hire.
The Isaiah Simmons piece, I'm still hung up on a little bit because he is a guy that fascinates me, and I hope you're right. I hope the change of scenery brings good things for him. But they need, as we've talked about, they need athletic stars on their defense.
Well,
and I don't think he is one.
You
but-
get drafted in the top 10 as a defensive player if you hit certain athletic measurements.
Correct.
And obviously he hit those. So it's can you mold that into something? And again, we're just singing the praises of Jeff Hafley. So hopefully if there's a coach that can do it, you're hoping that he can deliver him in a consistent spot and go, hey, I know you've been used all over the place. Maybe we utilize some of that. But we also think that if you're going to benefit from being in one spot, you get to learn that spot and be comfortable in it.
Look, Quay Walker didn't practice all offseason. I saw him scooter by on one of those one-legged scooters, and I think
Sweet.
I didn't get to talk to him beyond him riding on a stationary bike next to me at practice. He said hello, so I don't have a lot of insight from him. But during the entire offseason, it was Isaiah Simmons getting a lot of the work when they'd go 2 linebackers next to Edger and Cooper. So he got indoctrinated into the defense quickly. That's where they want to play him. That gives him some opportunity to maybe not be as versatile and maybe be more productive.
Is Quay still going to be the green dot, do you think?
That's a great question. Again, I would look at Quay Walker and say he is much better when he doesn't have to think as much and he can just react. And I think we've seen that growth. The issue is, like, I would say probably Isaiah McDuffie would be, who played for Hafley in college,
Right.
would be the guy I would love to have the green dot. But you take him out when you don't go when you go
Yeah.
sub package.
Yeah, right.
So that's not really realistic.
Yeah, and would you want to give it to
And I don't want to burden Edger and Cooper.
exactly?
Exactly.
Like Cooper seems like he's progressing. Is that too much too fast?
I'll tell you who had it when he was in New York, and I have no doubt could do it even from the back end. It's Xavier McKinney.
They're almost through the defense. State of the defensive backs. State of the defensive backfield. There's obviously 2 portions to this. Safety, you feel pretty good about. Xavier McKinney, Evan Williams, Javon Bullard, some up-and-comers, and obviously a massive free agency signing last year, bringing in Xavier McKinney, who at one point in the season was probably the front-runner for Defensive Player of the Year, or at least in the conversation last year. So he had a terrific year for the Packers at safety. You feel very good about that group. On the other hand, I don't know how good you're feeling about cornerbacks now that Jair Alexander has officially been released. Carrington Valentine, Keyshawn Nixon, Nate Hobbs.
Almost like they're 2 separate conversations.
Yeah, but I guess the more interesting one to me is the cornerback group because I feel like I'm more confident in this group than a lot of other people are.
Really?
I feel pretty good about it. I mean, how many teams? I feel good about 3 corners on this team. And I mean, maybe it's just because I'm listening to my guy Q Myers, who really told me that Nate Hobbs was going to be a great addition for the Packers. Despite him, I think he only played 11 games last year
Correct.
for the Raiders. But I look at that, and I can't imagine there's too many teams that have three guys that they truly trust. And by the way, because the safeties are so good and they would drop them down in the nickel sometimes, that adds to some of the depth that they have.
Right, Javon Bullard especially.
Yeah.
Yep.
How many times toward the end of last season did you walk away from a Packer game and go, man, the cornerbacks are an issue on this team?
Not a ton.
And I think they're better than they were at the end of last season. The reason, obviously, why I say the end of last season is because, well, there was no Jair Alexander. And I know that was such a big part of the discourse this offseason about the Packers cornerbacks and how bad they're going to be without Jair Alexander. But the fact of the matter is, the Packers, the reason why they signed Nate Hobbs was because they knew they were moving off of Jair Alexander. They knew this entire time that Jair was not going to be a member of this team. I don't know why Goody waited as long as he did, but he did. And this team, I like Carrington Valentine, and I feel like his arrow continues to point up. Keyshawn Nixon, the only thing he has done is delivered in every role the Packers have ever asked him to perform in. I look at him much like we were talking about Rasheed Walker. Oh, hey, we're going to put Rasheed in the competition. Well, here comes the guy he's going to... Is he a cornerback one? I don't know, probably not. I know he likes to, had the quote of being cornerback one at the end of last season, and I really like Nate Hobbs. I feel good about those three guys, and hopefully some of the other young players behind them continue to develop, and if there is an injury, they've got the safeties that they trust behind that.
Nate Hobbs has never played a full NFL season. The closest he came was 16 games as a rookie. He played 11 last year. He played 11 in 2022. I think he had 13 in 2023. So while he didn't miss as much time as Jair Alexander, he plays a very physical style, and that leads to ankle injuries and a broken hand and all the things that he dealt with. But I agree with you that he was a smart signing. They could have still kept Jair Alexander at the number that the Baltimore Ravens paid. Goody just hadn't. Goody and LaFleur, they just didn't want him back, period.
Yep.
Right? But I would feel differently about this group because here's the problem that I have. That's great that you feel that good about those three. How do you feel about them once one of those guys misses 6 games because of a MCL tear? Or whatever happened, PCL with Jair? Because here's the problem behind that. Again, they're all young guys that you're eager to see what they can do. But, Kalen King didn't play at all. Micah Robinson is a 7th-round pick. I went into the draft thinking that corner was one of their top needs because they were moving off of Jair. And even though they had signed Nate Hobbs, I like Stroph's guy. I am a big Carrington Valentine guy. I think he has a chance to be in that conversation of Donald Driver, Mark Tauscher, Adam Timmerman, Rasheed Walker, 7th-round picks who turn out to be really good football players for you. But all three of the guys we're talking about have something to prove. Keyshawn Nixon needs to prove that he's a number one. Everything else we've asked him to prove he has. So, for me, to your point, for me to bet against him would be foolish. But he has to prove he's capable of being a number one corner. Nate Hobbs has to prove that he can be a full-time player because he was a sub-package guy for the Raiders. And Carrington Valentine has to prove, after 22 NFL starts, that he's more than just a 7th-rounder overachiever.
It's a nice story.
Yeah.
Right. And I think all three of them can prove to be the people that I'm asking them to be, but they haven't done that yet. And on top of that, they all have to stay healthy because behind them, you're counting on a bunch of guys. Gregory Jr.,
correct,
who talk about great story from Wichita Baptist or wherever he's from. He's played 100 snaps on defense in the NFL. They do not have, and you can say what you want about Eric Stokes, and many have. You can say what you want about Robert Rochelle the musical. That's another Seinfeld reference. And Corey Ballantyne when they had the law firm of Ballantyne and Valentine. But those guys have played. These guys have not that are behind them. And they may play great. But right now, they're counting on those three to stay healthy all season long.
Yeah, and look, you're right. They could have afforded to have depth. I just think that there's not a lot of teams across the NFL. I think that most teams have 3 guys they feel good about, and then they're kind of holding their breath after one of those guys gets hurt. I just think that's the state of that position in the NFL. I don't think there are very many teams that are rolling 4 deep with guys they absolutely love and adore. I think that's a position because of the way the NFL has gone and everybody's spreading it out, and it's a position that gets stretched thin. And even a lot of teams probably don't have 3 guys that they could potentially feel as good about as the Packers do.
Let me ask you this, though, and you've had an unbelievable show, so it pains me to get after you a little bit. But aren't you doing with the corners what we kind of are saying that they do with the wide receivers?
Yep. Bingo.
That they got a lot of guys
Yeah.
that you like, but we don't really know how good they are. And isn't that equally applicable to... I mean, look, the problem, too, is
but I would
this
say
schedule has way more good quarterbacks and way more good wide receivers on their schedule.
That's very true. But the one thing I would say, though, at least with Keyshawn Nixon, is that Keyshawn has stepped up. Like, Keyshawn's answered the call.
Yeah.
He's answered the bell.
Yep.
And I don't think I can say that to any one of the wide receivers. Yes, he has another step to take because he's going to be counted on to be their top cornerback. But again, I feel good about this group. I also advocated for Jair being on the team, not even at the number that he was signed for in Baltimore,
right?
At the number that was just owed to him, because you only saved $5 million or whatever it would have been against the cap.
Correct.
So for the $5 million extra bucks to me that you saved, especially the way they decided to postmark the release, which has never
seen that before
that I can know in the NFL history, but so. For that extra $5 million, I would have, you've got the money.
Just do it.
Just keep him around, and then you can have that luxury that not a lot of teams have, even though you had already signed Nate Hobbs. I mean, I'm with you, Jason, but I also just accepted reality of the first statement you said, that neither Goody or LaFleur wanted this guy around, and for whatever reason decided to wait until after June 1 to release him.
Just to be clear for those of you watching on video, I didn't put my headphones down and ignore Gabe because I didn't like what he was saying. The fan fell down, so I had to fix that. So, great points as always. The floor is yours.
I am surprised at the optimism level of Gabe, to be honest with you. I figured this would be... we always reference 2 years ago our 2023 State of the Packers, and you guys kind of rained on my parade for 2 or 3 hours, however long our program was back in the day.
It was only 2, and that wasn't enough.
It wasn't enough. That's why it's 3 now.
It feels like too much.
Too much time dealing with me. Probably.
No, not at all. We could do another hour, but I'm not going to.
We could, and then we could split safeties and corners.
Could have, should have, but didn't. Because, boy, have we talked a lot about the safeties in this smushed-in segment.
What? Xavier McKinney's great.
He is.
Xavier McKinney's
Evan
really
Williams,
good
pretty good, too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I have high hopes on Javon Bullard. So I'm surprised by your optimism with the top 3, to be honest with you. But it's good to hear, to be honest with you, because I agree with the Keyshawn Nixon thing. He's answered the call at every turn. I thought he played really well last year. And, given the circumstances of Jair being inactive a lot of the time. I like what Carrington Valentine's done, but to Jason's point, I think right now, as it stands in his career 2 years in, it's just a good story. I don't know if we can say he's a really good corner yet. And then Nate Hobbs, it's TBD. I don't really know much. Hearing that your buddy Q Myers from ESPN Radio, who covers the Raiders out in Vegas, says that he's a really good player. That's great. But I worry about what Jason brought up as well, and that he misses time practically every year.
Because he plays physical.
And then all of a sudden we're going, oh boy, how good is Kalen King? I know people were excited about him, but we're actually going to have to find out this season at some point, right? So that's where I get a little bit of the EBGBs. I don't love the depth, but I do like the guys at the top of the depth chart.
I think that's fair. I didn't expect heebie-jeebies on my bingo card.
I mean, what did you say earlier?
It's Summerfest.
You said something in a different language. Correctamundo, I believe you yelled.
Correctamundo, yeah.
Yeah. So that wasn't on my bingo card either. So there we go. Anything else on the safeties?
I put Evan Williams at 18 on my list, which maybe some people wouldn't have put him on that list.
I would have.
But I look at him, not only in the vein of Micah Hyde, but he's the one guy that has such a high football IQ that I think the reason why he's so important, and I wrote about this at channel3000.com, is that you can, if he's the other safety, he gives you the flexibility to, at the last second, switch responsibilities and have Xavier McKinney do something different than what they're showing. And I think one of the challenges for this defense down the stretch last year was opposing offenses figured out a way to steer clear of Xavier McKinney. And while there's value in that, there's undeniable value in that, I don't want them to be able to avoid him because he is a playmaker for me. I want him to have chances at the ball. And if they're just saying, well, McKinney's on that side of the field, kind of like Mike McCarthy ignored the Richard Sherman side of the field in that first game against the Seahawks
Sacrificed
in 2014.
Jarrett Boykin's career.
Did not go. Jared was a non-factor that day.
He was.
And that is the State of the Packers defense from State of the Packers 2025. If you missed our conversation on the offense, we did that on Wednesday's edition of Mr. Relevant. You can find that in the ESPN Wisconsin app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Just search Mr. Relevant and YouTube as well, where we go over the state of the quarterback, state of the running back, state of the pass catchers, and state of the offensive line. Coming up on Monday, we've got a really interesting edition of State of the Packers. It's kind of a hodgepodge of our other conversations. So state of the coach, state of the GM, our overarching thoughts and theme and final takeaways from our long conversation on all things Packers. And then what we'll start Monday's edition with is who on the Packers offense is under the most pressure in 2025? That was by design. All three of us have different answers, again, by design, but it's an interesting quick conversation with Wilde and Neitzel that I think you'll enjoy. So that's coming up on Monday. But hey, got to tell you about our friends, Door County Distillery, locally produced, handcrafted, award-winning spirits made locally in beautiful Door County. If you're heading up there, Door County anytime this summer, got to check them out. They're connected with Door Peninsula Winery, so you can do the tours, you can do the tastings. It's a huge building. It's a really neat building. It's like a must-do if you're heading to Door County. Even for a quick drink and maybe just a quick browse, it's worth your time up in Door County Distillery in Carlsville. But if not, bring Door County to you, whether that's in Madison, Milwaukee, Stevens Point, Green Bay, bourbons, but whiskeys overall. They've got rye and a single malt as well, but I'm a bourbon guy. They've got great brandies. The cherry brandy's great in an old-fashioned. They've got rums, they've got gins, they've got vodkas, anything you can need. Check them out, DoorCountyDistillery.com. Enjoy the weekend. We're back with you Monday. I'm back with you live Wednesday. We will talk to you again. Peace.